Daniel Brooks believed in blueprints, not just for the modest suburban homes he designed, but for life itself. A good life, he reasoned, was built on solid foundations: honesty, loyalty, hard work, and providing for your family. He was the quiet architect of his own seemingly perfect existence, meticulously placing every brick of dedication. He married Sarah 5 years ago, convinced she was the keystone of his structure. Sarah was ambitious, vibrant, and possessed a certain captivating restlessness. Daniel adored her. He saw her drive as a sign of strength, her focus on her career as something noble he could support. He worked long hours, handled the finances, managed the household repairs, and was always there when she needed to talk through a difficult day or celebrate a small victory. He was her rock, her sounding board, her quiet, constant presence. He saw their dynamic not as imbalanced, but complementary. He provided stability. She provided the spark. At least that's what he told himself. He saw her needs not as demands, but opportunities to express his love and commitment. Her desire for a larger house. He worked extra projects. Her need for emotional support during a stressful work period. He cancelled his own plans. He built his identity around being the reliable, good husband, the man who put his wife's needs first. He believed this unwavering support, this selflessness, was the very definition of male value. It would be recognized, appreciated, reciprocated. There were small cracks he ignored: her increasing detachment, her focus solely on her own trajectory, the way he often felt like a supportive character in her movie rather than a co-star. But he dismissed these as the natural ebbs and flows of a busy, modern marriage. He held on to the idealized image he had constructed of Sarah and their life together, reinforcing it with every act of service. He was a good man, a good husband. Surely that was enough. Surely it built an unbreakable bond. The announcement that Sarah wanted a divorce came not with explosive drama, but with a calm, almost businesslike detachment that chilled Daniel more than any shouting match ever could have. She simply stated it wasn't working, that she needed something different, someone different, to match her evolving life. Daniel's carefully constructed world began to tremble on its foundations. He didn't understand. He had followed the blueprint. He had been the good guy. What had gone wrong? The divorce process was clinical, highlighting assets and liabilities, reducing their shared life to numbers on a spreadsheet. As the day to sign the final papers loomed, Daniel felt a deep, confusing sorrow, still clinging to the hope that somehow, somewhere, the love he had built his life upon still existed. The lawyer's office was hushed, sterile. The air conditioning hummed a low, impersonal tune. Daniel sat opposite Sarah at a polished, dark wood table, the mediator between them, a polite, grey-haired woman reviewing documents. The stack of papers, neatly bound, represented the dismantling of everything Daniel had believed in: his marriage, his future, his understanding of love and value. He watched Sarah as the lawyer spoke. She looked composed, focused, occasionally interjecting with practical questions about asset division. There was no visible sadness in her eyes, no hint of the shared history they were dissolving. Daniel felt a hollow ache in his chest, a confusion that twisted his gut. He had come here expecting pain, yes, but perhaps also a shared moment of solemnity, a final, quiet acknowledgement of the years they had spent together, the dreams they had once shared. Then Sarah spoke, not to Daniel, but to her lawyer, a casual aside that sliced through the room like a shard of ice. "Yes, this timeline works well. I'll be settled into the new apartment by then, and it aligns perfectly with my promotion start date. It's just a matter of closing this chapter." So closing this chapter, the words echoed in Daniel's mind. Not our marriage, not our life together, but simply this chapter, a phase, something to be concluded neatly so the next, more exciting phase could begin. And then, as the lawyer explained the financial settlement, the details of which assets Sarah would retain, facilitated by Daniel's stable income throughout their marriage, Daniel saw it with horrifying clarity. He wasn't a partner whose marriage was ending. He had been a resource, a convenient, stable phase of her life, providing the financial and emotional scaffolding she needed while she built her own climb. Now that she was ready for the next level, the scaffolding was no longer required. He saw the years of his unwavering support, his financial provisions, his emotional availability, not as building blocks of a shared life, but as utilities she had consumed until she no longer needed them. The pain wasn't just about losing Sarah. It was the searing agony of realizing he had fundamentally misunderstood the dynamic, misunderstood his own value, and misunderstood Her. He hadn't been her beloved husband. He had been a convenient phase, a stepping stone. His identity as the good guy, the reliable provider, felt like a cruel joke. He had given his all, believing it created unbreakable bonds, only to find those bonds were made of paper, easily torn. When it was his turn to sign, Daniel's hand trembled slightly. The ink on the page felt heavy, final. It wasn't just signing a legal document. It was signing off on an old life, an old self, and a deeply ingrained illusion. He looked at Sarah one last time, no longer with love or even sorrow, but with a chilling understanding. He had married the wrong woman, and he had only seen it clearly on the day the marriage died. He walked out of the sterile office into the harsh daylight, feeling stripped bare. The comfortable lie of his life shattered around him. The apartment felt vast and silent. Every object, every empty space where her things used to be, was a stark reminder of the life that had evaporated. Daniel moved through the rooms in a daze, the weight of the realization pressing down on him. He wasn't just divorced, he felt fundamentally foolish. How could he have been so blind, so willing to believe in an idealized version of reality that simply didn't exist? The initial days were a blur of pain and introspection. He replayed conversations, analyzed moments, and saw the subtle signs he had diligently ignored or misinterpreted. Her lack of genuine interest in his work, her constant focus on her own advancement, the way he was always the one initiating emotional connection. It was all there, hidden in plain sight, masked by his own desire to be the good husband who provided and supported without complaint. There were moments of crushing despair, periods where the sheer futility of his efforts felt overwhelming. The pain was sharp, a constant physical ache. He questioned everything about himself. Was he inherently unlovable? Was his value truly so conditional, tied only to what he could provide materially or emotionally? The good guy identity, once his source of pride, now felt like a label for a doormat. But beneath the pain, a stubborn ember began to glow. Daniel, for all his self-deception in the marriage, was inherently disciplined and introspective. He had a stoic core, a refusal to be utterly defeated. He sat in the quiet apartment, not wallowing endlessly, but analyzing. He treated the collapse of his marriage like a complex design failure. Where were the structural flaws? What were the material weaknesses? The biggest flaw, he realized with brutal honesty, was in his blueprint for value. He had outsourced it, tying it to Sarah's approval and perceived need. He had sought validation by being the dependable, selfless provider, believing this earned love and respect. The pain wasn't just agony, it was a catalyst. If being the good guy meant being used and discarded, then that framework was broken. He had to build something new, something based not on external validation, but on internal strength and self-defined value. He started small. The discipline that had fueled his career and his efforts in the marriage was redirected. He began with his physical space, clearing the remnants of the past. Then, his physical self, waking early, exercising, establishing a rigorous routine. These were small, tangible acts of reclaiming control. The introspection wasn't just regret, it was strategic. He was dissecting the failure to understand the mechanics, to prevent repeating it. The ashes of his old life lay around him, but the ember was flickering, ready to ignite something entirely new. He had been broken down but not destroyed. The painful truth was the only material strong enough to build his future. The ember didn't just flicker. Fueled by the furnace of his pain and strategic introspection, it began to blaze. Daniel threw himself into work, but with a new focus. Not just for income, but for the satisfaction of building something tangible and valuable on his own terms. The idea for his own architectural firm had always been a distant dream, something he'd put off because Sarah's career took precedence, or because the stability of his job was needed. Now there were no excuses, no other priorities. He poured his discipline into the new venture. Late nights sketching designs, early mornings networking, meticulously crafting his business plan. The process was grueling, demanding absolute focus. This wasn't about proving anything to Sarah. It was about proving something to himself, that his value wasn't contingent on someone else's need for him, but on his ability to create, to execute, to build from the ground up. Simultaneously, he attacked his personal life with the same rigor. The gym became a non-negotiable part of his day, pushing his physical limits, mirroring the stretching of his mental and entrepreneurial ones. He read voraciously, not fiction, but non-fiction, business strategy, psychology, philosophy. It was during this period of intense self-improvement and searching that he stumbled upon ideas that resonated deeply, coalescing into a framework for understanding the world he felt he had been blind to. He encountered the concepts that aligned with what was colloquially known as the red pill philosophy. Initially skeptical, his analytical mind quickly saw the practical, often uncomfortable truths it articulated about relationship dynamics, human nature, and, critically, the source of masculine value. It wasn't about hating women or becoming cynical. For Daniel, it was about shedding the naive idealism that had led to his downfall. It explained why his good guy strategy had failed. Value wasn't derived from being agreeable, selfless to a fault, or providing unconditionally while hoping for reciprocal emotional investment. True value, the kind that commanded respect and wasn't easily dismissed, came from competence, self-reliance, discipline, integrity in action, and building a strong, independent life. It was about understanding that actions, not sweet words or passive niceness, were the true currency of respect and attraction. This framework didn't breed bitterness. It bred empowerment. It gave him a lens through which to view his past marriage, not as a personal failing of being not enough, but as a structural failure based on a flawed understanding of human dynamics and his own misplaced priorities. His pain became a teacher. His introspection became a strategic tool. He was forging a new identity, one built on the hard, unyielding metal of self-ownership and earned competence. The weak, pliable material of the old blueprint was discarded, replaced by a robust framework for navigating life on his own terms. Years passed. Daniel Brooks was no longer the quiet architect, dreaming of a perfect life based on external validation. He was the successful principal of a thriving architectural firm, respected for his sharp mind and unwavering discipline. His office wasn't just a place of work. It was a testament to resilience, built brick by brick from the ground up. His personal life reflected the same intentional design. He maintained a rigorous routine of exercise, continuous learning, and focused work. His introspection wasn't a dwelling on past hurts, but a constant calibration of his path, ensuring his actions aligned with his values. He practiced a form of practical stoicism, facing challenges with calm analysis rather than emotional reactivity. Setbacks were not personal affronts, but problems to be solved. He understood now that his value wasn't something to be given away freely in the hopes of earning affection, but something cultivated internally and expressed through competence and integrity. He interacted with others, clients, colleagues, friends, with genuine respect, but without the underlying neediness that had characterized his past relationships. He had learned the crucial difference between being kind and being a pushover, between supporting someone and enabling them to use you. The pain of the divorce was a distant echo, a reminder of the man he used to be, and the crucial, painful lessons he had learned. He no longer viewed Sarah with bitterness, but with a detached understanding. She had simply been who she was, and he had been the one who overlaid an unrealistic expectation onto her. The mistake was his, in failing to see reality and in placing his self-worth in someone else's hands. Daniel was content. Not in a passive, comfortable way, but with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had faced his deepest failure and used it as the bedrock for building a strong, meaningful life. He wasn't defined by the woman he had married or the marriage he had lost. He was defined by his own choices, his discipline, his resilience, and the value he created in the world and within himself. The horizon ahead was open, not because a perfect partner might appear, but because he was finally standing on his own 2 feet, charting his own course. The hope that filled him wasn't the fragile hope of finding external validation, but the robust, enduring hope that came from knowing he possessed the strength, the wisdom, and the tools to build whatever future he chose, alone if necessary, but never again dependent on the fragile illusion of someone else's needs. He had married the wrong woman, yes, but losing her had led him to finally find himself,